Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of Weekly Pixels. This week I decided to revisit my first episode, the dungeon tile set. The goal of this week was to create the basis of a sort of knight character that fits into this tile set. Colors are not final in this, but as you can see, here's a little demonstration of how he might look inside a scene, the scene that I showcased on my first episode. So the way I went for building this character, I started out really simple. I had almost no idea what I wanted this guy to look like. I just kind of knew I wanted a knight. I had no idea what kind of style he would be. I ended up going with outlining him, which is not the same as the rest of the tile set, so I might have to revise that in time, but I wanted to have similar colors, so I just straight up took the tile set's colors from the dungeon and used them on this guy. Throughout the video though, I do adjust the colors and add a color even. But as you can see right here, I'm working with real simple shapes and kind of an outline of what I want this guy to be looking like. This is the first rendition. This video will feature nearly a dozen versions of this guy as I iteratively improve the sprite until I get something that I like. I feel like that's probably the best way that I can make original sprites like this. I'm still trying to figure out what kind of helmet design I like, and none of these are quite doing it for me. I try out the just open band where the eyes look through. That looks okay, but can't quite figure out how I want his legs to look, how his arms are supposed to look, if I want just eye holes or the band. And then around this point, I kind of just give up on that sprite, but I leave him up there as a reference, and I try to build another one right next to it. I'm working on a slightly different shape of helmet, so just drawing out the outline of the arms and the legs. Work with layers here so I don't have to erase quite as often. Making his helmet a little taller. Still messing with the way I want his eyes or his face of the helmet to look. At that point, that was a pretty good improvement over the last one, I would say. So I think this is where I move on to the next. Oh, yeah, right here I decided to go for an outline. I'm still messing with the helmet shape, but I decided to add like cool little horns on the side of his head. Those stick in after this. Yeah, I spent a decent amount of time on this one, but I realized his sprite's too small, so I copied him, made a new one, and I spread him out a bit to give him a little more real estate to work with. Even still at this point, I can't quite decide how I want the eye hole to look, but I sort of figured it out right here. This is like your traditional barbit, or barbute, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, helmet. I end up sticking with that design throughout the rest of the process. So right now he doesn't look like a knight really, I mean other than the helmet, but his armor's dark purple and that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And then his clothes underneath are dark purple as well, and it just really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Here you go, we're on to the, what now, 4th version of my knight. I should note that I am designing this sprite with the restrictions of a 16 pixel wide by 24 pixel tall canvas limitation, and that might change in the future. I don't want them to be wider than 16 pixels. The height, I guess, is kind of variable. I don't want it to be much taller than 24 like it is right now, though. But the idea is for this to fit into my dungeon tile set, and that is a 16 by 16 pixel tile set, or tile base. I'm trying to make this guy sort of fit into that. It's alright if he's a little bit taller, because I can adjust some things later, but as you can see, I'm starting to kind of get a feel for how I want this guy to look. give him a little bit of a metal plate on his shirt. Here I'm tweaking the colors because I wasn't really liking the way I had it before. I continue to tweak them throughout the whole process, to be honest. After this rendition, where he's kind of got the shiny breastplate, got the fully fledged helmet that I'm liking the shape of it now. I make another one. And this one I kind of mess with the design a bit more. See if I can figure out how these shadows might look, or the breastplate's shape might be different. Or maybe his arms will stick out a little bit more, or have smaller shoulders. And right here you can see I'm laying out my usable palette, and I actually end up adding another color in because I felt like I didn't have enough colors to work with. So I added something in between the lightest purple and then the darkest gray, and that color would be like an in-between shadow for both the metal and like a highlight for the cloth or the purple Under Armour. That worked out pretty nicely. Still tweaking colors a bit, trying to figure out what type of... Oh, there you go. There's a note. It's pretty amusing how far I came on this one. Started with a completely awful looking little guy and ended up with a pretty decent looking knight guy. Here I'm deciding that all of the armor on his body needs to be gray, and then everything else will be the purple. Everything underneath at least. On to the next rendition. You can see I added leg plates. On this one I'm like, I need to get some shoulder plates on this guy. So I drop some quick shoulder plates, color and highlight them. They fit pretty good, I think. Still tweaking shading and whatnot, trying to figure out how I want it. As you can see, I have kind of like a darker outline on the inside and a black outline on the outside. I end up not caring for that, so I completely copy and paste again, and this time I turn all of the black outline into a dark purple, and I leave it at that because I think that looks a little bit better than having any black on it. Give him some eyes. And there you have it. That was the final process there. And on this one, this is the second day I worked on this. The sprite on the top left, I changed his head shape to be a little bit shorter, and I gave him a different style of horn. And now the goal of this session was to create a back side and a side of the sprite for directional movement inside the dungeon. So I'm starting with the back here, and because of how I have the breastplate on the front side, it just doesn't really... I can't think of a way to make it look decent on the back side. I suppose I could have done like leather straps connecting the sides and the back, but as you can see I made another rendition here to try to maybe figure something out, and I just wasn't really feeling it, so I ended up redoing the front side of the sprite a bit because I'm not liking the breastplate design. So what I ended up doing now is I have a sort of layered steel plate design, and I think that turned out much better. Not without much trial and error though. Once I got the shading down though, I feel like it looked pretty good. I did spend quite a lot of time messing with the fine details on this guy, trying to get it to something that I enjoyed and something that I think read well. Changing up the colors again, trying the darker or the lighter outline on the inside. I wasn't really feeling it. I ended up shrinking up his legs, I think. Alright, shrink up his arms, and then I shrink up his legs. And I give him a little bit more height on his helmet, I believe. Alright, now his helmet's too short, I don't like that, so I shrink up his legs, increase the height of his helmet again. And that's more what I'm looking for, I think. I think that's what I finally ended up with. Trying out different styles of feet, and none of them quite look as good as the original, so I go back to the original. Get rid of all the old designs that I just think are worse. Contemplate these two for a little while, and I definitely like the new one better. So, start working on the back side of this one. This one, I guess, seemed a little more obvious a way to create the back of the armor. Just gave it a spine essentially. And that was then reshaded it a bit. Turned out to work pretty damn good. Still messing with little details and stuff, but for the most part, that's the design of the front and back. Now I'm working on the side. Now the side, I always have a problem with drawing characters' profile. I don't know why. It's just, they never turn out looking the way I'd like them to. This guy turned out okay, I guess. It's really hard to draw detail of the layered plate armor with a smaller width of a character because I'm on profile instead of front facing or back facing. But it ended up working out okay. So I'm messing with the way the helmet should look from the side. Making it too blocky. I finally find a nice rounded shape like that. Stick with that. Add in his foot. Now I try to get his body and back in. And I know that the first thing you should see is the shoulder plate, so I work with that. That's on top of everything else. Messing with the shoulder plate design, it's just not really doing a whole lot for me. So I broaden his chest a bit. Now he kind of looks like a stump. Not sure. I was trying to go for maybe a staggered feet there, but it just did not look good, so I gave up on that idea. Figured out the shoulder plate a little bit. Added his hand in. Now I can sort of draw with the lines for the plate and highlight it accordingly, and that seems to read a little bit better. But then I realized I had it upside down, so I tried again. Get the highlighting right on the shoulder plate, fix his foot, and there you have it. That would be the knight for the dungeon. I think he turned out pretty good. He looks like a total badass. Here's him one more time in the mock-up, rotating just for animation's sake. Alright, man. Thanks for sticking around to the end. I'll see you next week. Have a great time.